Hello and welcome to the next episode of the Practice Joy Show. My name is Dr. Dinnerman and I am your host. The goal of our show is to spread joy like wildfire to practices all over the world. This is an exciting episode for me on a personal level and a professional level. Andrew is a professional organizer. Organization is a thing for me. I can't tell you how excited I am to have you on my show, Andrew. So let me just take a minute and introduce you for people who don't know of your greatness yet. Andrew Mellen, Wall Street Journal, best-selling author, speaker, coach, and ready, the most organized man in America. How do you even get that title? Tell us.
The media called me that, so. I mean, it wasn't a contest. They didn't line up a bunch of relatively organized people and we had like a bake-off or something. The media called me the most organized man in America.
So tell us a little bit about what you do, how you work with people, how you teach them where do they even start with you?
Well, my private clients are people who hire me to either come into their homes or into their offices. My students are people who come to take my programs that we run through my own company. So we have the Unstuff Your Life system, we have Your Next Big Thing, we have the De-Stress Your Mess Challenge. These are multiple online programs that people can participate in. I speak at conferences, trade shows, I train corporations. So some companies will hire me to bring me in to do training for them around time management, organization, or a hybrid of them.
And if somebody was to say to you in a nutshell when it comes to time management, let's start there. Where do you start? How do you, for people who have, like myself, I'm constantly revisiting the framework of time management. What would you be let's call it your top 3 pointers for time management?
Well, I mean, the first thing that I would say is really context, and that is time is a non-renewable resource. So we tend to check out when we're thinking about time, tell ourselves, there's a statistic that says the average person tells 200 lies a day. Wow. Probably 2/3 of them will never be spoken. 1/3 of them will come out of our mouth. And it could be something like, Jodi, I'm so sorry to bother you. When I'm not really sorry to bother you, because if I was sorry to bother you, I wouldn't be bothering you. Right? But we have these patterns of behavior and speaking unconsciously. And it's all about trying to, on some level, manipulate the outcome. Right? If I tell you I'm sorry for interrupting you, then when I interrupt you, I somehow feel better about it. And it minimizes potentially the impact for you in my mind. It doesn't minimize the actual impact to you, but for me as a way of thinking of it, it reduces it so I feel better about doing it.
Right.
That's an example of one of the 200 lies.
Interesting.
The point is, right, we tell about 200 lies a day. Many of them are about what I call bad math. This will only take me 15 minutes when in fact it'll take you 32 minutes. I don't have enough time to start that. I need a lot of time. And in fact, you might be able to do it in 7 minutes because we don't have a clear relationship with math. And it's simple math. It's bodega math. So also when I say math, sometimes people have a feeling of like, I'm not.
Bodega math? What is that?
Well, like a drugstore math, dime store math, a bodega, like a corner drugstore or store where you could count the change from your $5 bill if you bought a pack of chewing gum.
Right.
Right? It's like it's simple 2-digit, 3-digit math. There's 24 hours in a day. There's 168 hours in a week. So we're not talking about quantum physics.
Right.
So sometimes when I say, math, people are like, I'm not good at math. I'm very talented. I'm very creative. I suck at math. It's like, well, the math that we're talking about is 2-digit math.
Right.
If you can tie your shoes, you can do the math that I'm talking about. So that's another one of your 200 lies, right? Like, I'm not good at math.
So why is it so complicated for people?
Well, I mean, the meta piece of it is we're all going to die and we don't know when, and it freaks us out. So we struggle to make sense out of the fact that there is an external clock ticking that we have no control over.
So we're like constantly feeling the pressure of getting it all in, getting it all done, and even if it's subconscious.
And at the same time, pretending like we have infinity as opposed to a very finite timeline that we have no clue about. So we are doing two things, not simultaneously, because you can't multitask, but the tension between the two things of either living in a fantasy of, I have all the time in the world, I don't have to do this right now, it's not that critical because I can always do it later or tomorrow.
Right.
And that's counteracted by, oh my God, I'm already late. There's not enough hours in the day. How am I going to get this all done? So we just keep ourselves in complete adrenal overload,
right,
because we're pulled between those two polar points of, there's all the time in the world, I can totally blow this off, and oh my God, I'm already late, what am I going to do?
Right.
So.
And some people hang out in one world more, and some people hang out in the other. So
and others move like a pinball between the 2 points in a constant state of agitation.
Which is, that ties me into the joy piece, because that agitation is the opposite of being in a state of joy.
Yeah, it would be very hard to tap into any sense of happiness or joy,
right,
when you're that stressed out.
Right.
And often it is, I think, in my experience, it is often a baseline hum of agitation that we, again, it's our subconscious is quite aware of it, but consciously we push it down and we try to dumb it down. We try to numb it out. We try to ignore it, but it's just pulsing along under everything. So that sense of going deep and tapping into joy is very hard to get to, because there's interference, literally energetic interference that is running under the entire day of just this drum of time,
right,
ticking, ticking, ticking. So you either make peace with that or it runs you subconsciously.
So what do you do? What are we supposed to do about it? What's the action step?
Well, some form of mindfulness practice, some way of tapping into something that is larger than our senses, mm-hmm, and our brains, our mind, the part that is busy and present, or busy and not present, right? I mean, it's, I don't think you have to become a Zen monk, mm-hmm, to experience joy and quiet. You do need to breathe a little bit and tap into, in this moment, mm-hmm, there's really nothing wrong. Mm-hmm. Food, clothing, and shelter are taken care of, right? I'm not hungry unless I'm fasting, or, mm-hmm, I have access to food. I'm not naked unless I choose to be, mm-hmm, right? And the clothes that I'm wearing are clean clothes that hopefully I look good in. And if not, I have the ability to put on clean clothes. Mm-hmm. There's a roof over my head that's not leaking. And if it were leaking, I could go someplace warm and dry. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, if those things let's say for, a certain clump of the population from working middle class up, that's taken care of. People in poverty, they have different circumstances. And I mean, as a society, I think we have a moral obligation to help elevate them so that those kinds of pressures, food, clothing, and shelter, could be eliminated from their life. Right. That they're not having to live at that level. If we're talking about people who, those are no longer daily worries, how do we want to focus our time? And the way to tap into that is to be quiet for a minute.
Right.
Right.
So being quiet for a minute. And first of all, if we have clothing and food and shelter, that alone is a gratitude shot, right?
I mean, it's 3 gratitude shots.
Absolutely.
Right. So, I mean, you've won the lottery.
You've won the lottery. Compared to most of the world, which I think a lot of us are disconnected from that, that fact.
There is that.
So I want to switch gears, because
sure,
that's time, right?
Yeah.
So we talk a lot about time. We talk a lot about stuff and organization of stuff. And I want to go to what I'm thinking of as my desk at home, and all of the things and all of the piles and all of the containers and all of the and that gives me a sense of, like, the hum that you were talking about with time. It's a constant hum in my world. Feeling the disconnect of ease visually when I look at my physical space. Mm-hmm. Can we go there? Can you give us some some go-tos or some juicy pointers when it comes to taking the physical space that's in front of you and creating ease or joy with that?
Sure. So let's start with the organizational triangle.
Yes, I love this.
So this is really the 3 rules for getting and staying organized. One home for everything, like with like, that's how we get organized. Something in, something out is how we stay organized.
One home for everything.
Like with like.
Yep.
Something in, something out.
Is this something that you made up?
It is.
Awesome. I love it. So can we go through each piece?
Of course. One home for everything means everything has one home, only one home. We won't debate the principle. Where you keep your keys can be completely different from where I keep my keys. There's not only one home for everyone, but your keys need a home.
Right. My
keys need a home. That way they're only ever one of 2 places. They're in our hand unlocking something or they're in their home. You'll find your keys anytime in 5-10 seconds because they can only literally be one of 2 places.
So that's a rule that you set for yourself. This is where I keep my keys.
Correct.
Right. It's an agreement that you make with yourself.
Exactly. And if you share space with other people, it's an agreement that you make with them as well. So they know not to, if you say, honey, can you move my car? They know where to find the keys and they know where to return the keys. They don't then keep them in their pant pocket after they've moved your car or drop them on the kitchen counter. They don't put them someplace else. They return them to their home as well.
Awesome.
So if you share space with anybody, those kinds of agreements are essential because otherwise everybody's operating in a vacuum, not a recipe for success.
Right.
Okay, like with like means all like objects live together, not most of them.
Okay.
So instead of having most of the tools in the toolbox in the garage or the utility closet, and then keeping the Phillips head screwdriver in the junk drawer in the kitchen, because you've got a story that says, the knobs are always a little loose. I don't want to go all the way out to that garage to get the Phillips head screwdriver. I'm going to keep it right here at my fingertips. This is good time management. I'm saving all that time back and forth. It'll be right here at my fingertips anytime I need it. The problem is you won't remember that. You'll go to the toolbox looking for the Phillips head screwdriver. You won't find it.
And it's also not consistent for if you are living with other people. It's not a consistent system for you. You guys, this is such an important point because if we are, let's bring that concept, and we'll get back to number 3, to the office.
Sure.
If we are in a wellness practice and we're serving many people throughout the day, and you need the stapler to give the forms to Mrs. Jones to bring to the whatever, and you have to spend 3 minutes looking for the stapler because it's not in the place that it was agreed upon, right? This is why everything needs a place. It makes so much sense. And it goes back to protecting time.
Right.
So interesting. So number 3.
Something in, something out?
Yes.
Right. So something in, something out just means once you achieve stuff equilibrium, everything has a home, all like objects are together. Then when something new comes in, something old goes out. We're not accumulating things. Again, if you've ever said there aren't enough hours in the day, then my question to you would be, why would you spend any of it shopping for something you don't need? I mean, I understand the diversion aspect. I mean, I'm not an idiot, right? So I get like, ooh, a mall, I think I'll just go window shop, even though you're not shopping for windows and you're just looking at stuff. If that's a way for you to self-soothe, to quiet your mind,
to numb.
Right? I mean, or to do something that is somewhat meditative. I mean, walking meditation is a real thing. You could meditate through the mall and observe things without getting attached to them, and just in the same way that we would let our thoughts arise and observe them and then not grab onto them, we could let the things in the window of, Pottery Barn appear, walk past them and leave them right there. We don't need to bring them home with us. We don't need to get attached to them. It's the same thing. So we often say, oh, I've just got 10 minutes to kill. And yet, right, you don't have enough time to murder it.
That's a very strong thing to say.
It is.
Or even, I mean, I've got 10 minutes to kill is a strong thing, but so is my back is killing me. And I actually will go as far as to say to my practice members, do you really want to use those words? Do you want to identify your body as a war zone? So I'm going back to number 3 because this is definitely the place where I would never show you my closet, right? So how do you determine where the bar gets set as far as like, when do you cap at how many things come in versus, how do you know where to cap it?
Yep. So the space is giving you feedback all the time. There's room. There's no room. There's less than no room, right? Things are so packed in here, you can't easily navigate them. So you're getting feedback, visual feedback, which then turns into emotional feedback because you're probably unhappy as you're rifling through your closet thinking, I can never find that one blouse that I'm looking for, that I look great in. Where is it? Oh, it's in the laundry. I guess I'll go to my next favorite shirt or blouse, right? And we work our way through there. There's a statistic that says we wear 20% of our wardrobe 80% of the time.
Wow.
And so if you think about your greatest hits, right, the stuff you always look good in, the stuff you gravitate towards, the stuff that you always want, it's a bit of an argument for a bit of a uniform, right? Because if you look really good in this shirt, maybe you should have 3 or 4 of them. I mean,
and get rid of 3 or 4
that you don't wear, right? The has-beens, the leftovers, the backups.
Right.
If that's dirty, then I can go to this, but you really would prefer to have that. Now, I understand we also like variety, so I'm not suggesting that we flatten everything out and you just have literally the same shirt, only one pair, one shirt, 7 of them.
I totally envy that, though. When I see that in a movie where, the person walks into their closet and they've got 7 of the same shirt, 7 of the same pants, I'm like, there's just no decision that needs to be made.
Right. Well, there was one when you purchased it.
Right.
And then you don't have to think about it again. Yeah, no,
right.
I mean, there's a definite argument for that. My point is, in the closet, it's telling you there's too much stuff shoved in here. I need some breathing room.
Right.
When there's enough stuff that you can easily get to everything, but it's not so spacious that there's lots of empty space unless you want that. But if it's just neatly arranged and you can get to everything without having to go through something to get to something else, that would be how I would define stuff equilibrium. That's enough.
Hi, it's me, Dr. Jodi Dinnerman, your Practice Joy Show host. Thanks so much for watching this episode of the Practice Joy Show. You are officially on commercial break, which means one thing around here. It's time for some gift giving. We get how overwhelming private practice can be, and our overwhelm tools are so simply stated and lovingly delivered. They're bound to leave you smiling. You may be one of our audience members looking to increase joy in a spot or 2 around the practice. You may be overflowing with joy, but have some room for efficiency with systems. Either way, in our world, you're worth celebrating. We're going to send you 3 days of gifts, which will end up right in your inbox. Your day 1 gift is all about time management and schedule flow. Adding these time tools are going to let you get out of the office at least 30 minutes earlier each day so that you have more time to enjoy outside of the office. On day 2, I'm going to send you a free copy of my first book, Staffless. This quick read joy sparker will provide real deal copy paste solutions for practice front desk systems. And then on day 3, we will conclude the gifting with some practice mindset goodies. Our intention is to pamper you with joy, as we know that a more joyful you equals a more joyful community. Then we can rest assured that our mission is being accomplished, to spread joy like wildfire to practices worldwide. So here we go. Come on over to thepracticejoyshow.com to get your 3 days of gifting. You can also use our QR code. Just open up that smartphone of yours, go to your camera, point and click, and you'll be taken right on over to thepracticejoyshow.com. Once you get to that page, you will see a quick capture form to collect your name, email, and number. Give us your deets and we'll send you the goods. And now, back to the show. If wherever you look in your house, there are piles and there's stuff overwhelmed, where do you start? Where does somebody start?
Well, you have 2 choices then, right? If you're feeling strong, you can go to the place where the most stuff is piled because you're going to get the biggest bang for your buck there. If you're feeling kind of puny, a little ambivalent, a little tenuous, I would say go for low-hanging fruit. Like, what can you scrape off the surface? Some junk mail that you can throw in the recycle bin, some laundry that you can fold, some things that you empty the dishwasher, empty the sink, right? Find your way from the easiest things where you can build some momentum to the deepest things. I say often, failure breeds failure, success breeds success. So if you've tried to get organized in the past and you've not been so successful, the next time you try it, you're already feeling beat up.
Right.
Whereas if you can build any momentum, now you're starting to feel like, oh, I thought I couldn't do this, but apparently I can in baby steps.
Right.
So if that means clearing off the vanity in your bathroom, you know, putting the toothbrush in the toothbrush holder or in, you know, in the medicine cabinet, if it means, again, emptying the sink or emptying the dishwasher or just recycling some junk mail and some catalogs, nobody needs catalogs coming into their home unless they're actively shopping for something.
Or unless the catalog surfing is part of the white noise for you, just like the window shopping is.
Yes, and on a spectrum of behavior, as you deepen your consciousness and your awareness of your choices, perhaps that behavior would fall away and it would be replaced by something that would give you even more joy and just less numbingness. You know, it's not exactly palliative, but that sense of, you know, of just quieting the noise. Perhaps we could accelerate the activities that bring more joy than just flipping through a catalog.
Right.
Right? I mean, maybe helping your kid with their homework, maybe coaching their soccer team, maybe volunteering at a soup kitchen, maybe writing your journal, something that's a little more proactive than just turning the pages.
Right.
I mean, if that's all we can do today, awesome. Better that than being in a state of agitation. But ideally, we would progress from this kind of a, you know, a self-soothing behavior into something that was more tied into your values.
Yeah.
And the kinds of things that you would choose to do if you had all the time in the world, the things that spark joy, that make you happy, right? And whatever that is, and I don't care what they are. I mean, we all have them, and they are tied to our values, the things that make getting up in the morning worthwhile and something that we want to do for another day, at least.
So what do you suggest to people who are on this path to clearing space, to creating more time, but they live with people who are not on that path at all? What do? You start with just your personal spaces? Do you create agreements with the people who you're sharing space with? Because that's tricky.
Yeah, you start with yourself, and then you engage whoever you're living with into a conversation. I've noticed that the house doesn't seem to support our well-being as good as it could. I feel like sometimes we all, individually and together, lose time, and there's a degree of frustration when we can't find things that we're looking for. Do you agree?
Absolutely.
And that's a question.
Right.
And if they say, I don't agree, I think it's fine, then you have the problem. The family doesn't have a problem.
Right.
If they say, you know, now that you mention it, I do feel like I am losing time, and I feel frustrated when I can't find what I'm looking for. And if you can find a common problem, then you can collaborate on a common solution. If you don't have a common problem, you have the problem.
Right.
They don't have a problem.
Right.
So you have to find the way to get okay with the fact that they don't have a problem.
Right.
You only have a problem.
Awesome. Awesome. So for wellness practitioners who are looking to discover a more joyful experience in practice, when it comes to organization, what are a couple of take-homes that they can, I mean, obviously implementing the triangle is one of them, and those are 3 steps within one system, right? What are some other things that they can focus on doing in their everyday world immediately?
Yeah, well, one notebook only.
So good.
You know, so that you're not scribbling notes on the backs of envelopes, Post-its, your hand, 3 or 4 different notebooks that you leave all over the place. Ideally, I live in a pretty digital world. I mean, I write all the time longhand, and I use a pen and I use paper, but I live in a digital world and I organize in a digital world. I dictate things into my phone as a way of getting them into the computer so that then I can work with them, prioritize them, assign them specific times that I will do them. Mm-hmm. And so I would say that if somebody is in a pretty analog, papery world, that harvesting those bits of information that are on Post-its, on the backs of envelopes, in the multiple notebooks, starting to pull them together so that if there's redundancies, yay, you get to check it off or cross it out or throw it in the garbage. You don't need to write it 3 times. Mm-hmm. If you wrote yourself the same note, pick up the dry cleaning, pick up the dry cleaning, pick up the dry cleaning, you don't need to do, submit the billing, submit the billing, submit the billing. Mm-hmm. You don't need that to keep, you don't need 4 iterations of it. You just need 1, and then you need to prioritize it and put it at the top of the list. So one of the quickest things that anybody can do is pull together all the disparate pieces of paper and all the notes that you scribbled down so you didn't forget something, and harvest them, put them into one document, and then start to prioritize them. I would also encourage you to look at, I call them time buckets. I talk about them as time buckets in my book, Calling BS on Busy. And a time bucket is just a category. It's just a way of creating a 3-dimensional container for common tasks, using like with like for tasks. So we don't have medical and wellness tasks and activities competing with home maintenance.
Right.
There's a one that is clean the gutters. Mm-hmm. When it comes to home maintenance, and there's a one that comes, in wellness that is, whether it's about your practice or it's about your life, right? Maybe it's going to see the oncologist, or it's, going to the dermatologist or going to the dentist. That shouldn't be competing with cleaning the gutters. They're both ones. And if you had them only on one to-do list, it would be hard to figure out, well, which one should I do first? They're both super important. I do need to clean the gutters before it starts to snow, and I do need to go see the oncologist. Mm-hmm. So you can see how somebody could get stuck at that fork in the road of like, well, I don't know which left, right, I'll do nothing. Right. I can't deal with the tension of trying to decide, so I'll do nothing. Worst choice, completely understandable choice. So if we chunk them up and we have home maintenance kinds of tasks, wellness tasks, business tasks, and then business could be subdivided by business development tasks as well as business delivery tasks.
Right. And
if we continue to chunk them up into their like categories, then we can prioritize inside those categories.
So it goes from your brain or your heart to your phone as a task. You're talking into your phone. And it goes from your phone to your calendar, correct? Is that what you're saying?
The phone I'm dictating into specifically...
An app.
Yes, into like a notes-taking app. And then I will harvest it from that and put it on a to-do list in a particular time bucket.
Got it.
From there, it will get scheduled.
And does the schedule have reminders? What if you...
every appointment has a reminder built into it.
Right. In your calendar, every
Correct.
Appointment.
The calendar is how you drive your day. You don't drive your day from a to-do list. Okay. A to-do list has no quantification on it.
Right.
And has no deadline attached to it. A calendar does.
Right.
So if I say I'm going to be in the studio with Dr. Jodi, I need to show up at 11:30. There's an appointment on my calendar that says show up at the studio at 11:30. Mm-hmm. 12 o'clock, shoot with Dr. Jodi. Mm-hmm. I don't need a reminder for the 12 o'clock because the 11:30 got me here. Mm-hmm. So the 11:30 has a reminder that by 11:15 I need to be leaving my hotel room and walking to the studio. Mm-hmm. So some things don't need alerts, others do.
Mm-hmm. So smart. So I think about this in the world of like the mom who's bringing her kids to soccer and
right.
the dad who's bringing their kids to swimming lessons, and those people who also are in a team meeting with their staff, are going to a professional seminar. And when they have 5 minutes in their car in between dropping Johnny off at soccer practice and going to the office to have your team meeting, you have 10 things that you think of you need to do. So you're saying you open up your phone, you talk into your phone, dropping those 10 things, and then at a different time in the day, you take that list and you allocate it to a time bucket when you're working on the office or when you're, and so on and so forth. Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Brilliant.
Yes.
Awesome.
And ideally, as it becomes a practice, you don't have to keep repeating the same 10 things because you're afraid you'll forget them.
Right.
Right? That fear, one of our 200 lies, right? Like, oh, I don't want to forget this.
So that would be a lie.
Yeah.
Right, got it.
Well, if you've actually recorded it, and it doesn't have to literally be dictation. I just like dictation because I can talk faster than I can type, particularly on a mobile phone, right, where I'm using my thumbs.
Right.
I can talk much faster, and the AI is pretty good at getting the words right.
Right.
And so it's much easier for me to do that and then harvest it from that note and put things where they belong and then book the actual appointments with myself so I keep the appointments.
And this is all, I think that part of this is trial and error, like figuring out what system with all of this works best for you and the way that you bring. So with a couple of minutes left, are there any nuggets to chew on for our listeners to create change in their organization picture so that they can discover more joy? Anything we didn't talk about?
Well, I would return to, if you have piles of things, those are just deferred decisions. So you want to budget time to make the decisions. You've created some time debt for yourself. You don't need to feel bad about it. That's, again, just wasted energy. Talking crap to yourself, shaming yourself, blaming yourself. You know, I'm so grateful for Maya Angelou for that quote, right? Like, when we know better, we do better. So just cut yourself some slack. Draw a line in the sand. Whatever you did or didn't do doesn't matter. It's over. From this moment forward, you have agency to do something different. So in this moment, don't talk crap to yourself. Move forward. Make the decisions. Decide, you know, whatever these are, you could even decide, whatever these things that I've scribbled down, if I haven't done them already, maybe they don't really need to be done.
Right.
And I could throw them all right in the recycle bin and start from scratch and move forward from here. Again, one of our 200 lies is, that sounds great. There might be something really important in there. Let me just look at it one more time.
Right.
If you need to look at it one more time, just make a commitment to yourself that you will only look at it one more time and then act on it, which means either delegate it, do it, or delete it.
Right. I
So
love it.
those
I love that.
You know, those are your choices. Delegate it, delete it, do it.
Right.
And doing it could just be booking time to do it. You don't literally have to stop what you're doing and, you know, go to the gym if that was one of the things, right? But booking time on your calendar to go to the gym at 7 o'clock after work needs to happen, not just, oh, I'll remember to go to the gym after work, because when you leave the office, you're like, oh, I'm just so beat. I'll get up extra early tomorrow morning. I'll work out longer tomorrow morning. I just want to go home and relax now. That's the slippery slope.
Right. Awesome. We say to, I work with a lot of students from all over the world. And one of the things I say to them is that every task has 4 options. 1 is you just do it. 2 is you delegate it to somebody who can catch it appropriately, somebody who's going to catch it because that's where their skill set is, and somebody who's going to catch it and actually get it done. 3, you cross it off the list because it really doesn't need to be done. And 4 is you automate it. So I think where a lot of wellness practitioners get stuck is they're not categorizing that list. And really, to start with a healthy list, and whether you're talking it into your phone or you're I like pen to paper, you're writing it down, just start somewhere. And my favorite thing to say to my students is, you start where your feet are at. Wherever your feet are at, whatever feels the most overwhelming in the moment, that's the piece that you start with. So thank you, Andrew Mellen. Thank you. That was really awesome. And there's so much more of the Practice Joy show coming your way.